Hello, welcome to 2023 Denton Black Film Festival Virtual. My name is Linda Eady and I'm the Director of Film Programming for the festival. And we're glad you could join us today. First, before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsors, NBC5, City of Denton, Panavision, and all of the many other sponsors that we have, for we could not put this program on without their help and their support. Tonight, we have a special program for you. There's a film, The Artful Dream Fulfilled, the African American Museum of Dallas. And we're going to have a conversation with the filmmakers, with the producers and the director, and of course, Dr. Robinson, who got this all started. So what we're going to do is let's start with, I want to go ahead and bring out the executive producer and the producer.
Pioneers.
Executive producer
I'm Harold Taft.
An obsession.
Oh, sorry. I think we started, unfortunately, starting the commercial. Adam, are we ready to bring our guest on? Our first guest will be Helen Benjamin. She's the executive producer on the project. Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you, Linda?
I'm fine. And I'm going to let you, let's start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself, about what you're doing now. And then we're going to go backwards in time.
Okay. I'm supposed to be retired now from a lifetime, it seems, as an educator. And I moved back to Dallas from California after being there about 30 years. And so I'm a consultant now and doing some consulting work with community colleges all over the country. So that's what I do now, and kind of volunteer and help where I can.
Okay, that's wonderful. And if we can bring on Linda Dickerson Lamar, she was a producer on the film. And Linda, tell us what you're doing now, and then we're going to go back in time because I know you and Helen are special friends. And I want to start with how that, so that we can get to how this project even came about. We want to start there. So tell us what you're doing now, Linda.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, I founded a nonprofit, Dickerson Center for Civic Responsibility, and we empower young people to be servant leaders. So we help them to create projects in the community to bring about real solutions. And do you want me to say how I met Helen? I met Helen on my first day arriving at Bishop College.
Yes, that's what I wanted to get to. You have been friends for a long time here.
Over 50 years.
Wow. So, I mean, tell me how this friendship evolved and how you ended up coming to this project. I mean, how does this happen?
Well, we met in 1968, that summer, I guess it was.
Uh-huh.
And we have a lot in common. We're both from Louisiana. Okay. And we've lived in different places, married, unmarried, married again, had all kinds of life changes, East Coast, West Coast, but we've remained friends throughout. And now we're back together in Dallas, in the same place again, after all these years, but we never lost contact. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, and a little bit about how the project started. I had this idea for a number of years and had floated around in different ways, even wrote a proposal through my nonprofit to do a historical project, oral history of some of the key leaders in Dallas. It was in the summer after COVID began, and Helen and I were talking like we often do. And I just said, I really wish we could do a historical project with Dr. Robinson and the African American Museum. And she said, neat, let's do. And so then she approached Dr. Robinson, and then I'll let her tell about the rest of that experience.
Well, the other part I'll add in there is that Linda and I both have a love for history, especially our own history, African American history. And we have a deep love for Bishop College, which is no longer open. So that figured into this as well. And because we both know that the African American Museum got its start at Bishop College, we thought it was important for people to know that and to be reminded, because so often the important things that happen in life are not recorded and they're forgotten. So that was one of the motivations for this as we were talking. Well, it goes back a little further because someone had asked Dr. Robinson, a reporter, about the museum, and he and I had been having a conversation. He says, you need to talk to Helen Benjamin about that. So then I get this call from a reporter, and Linda and I had been talking about the project. And of course, Harry had said he would never do anything like this. So it's hard for him to say no to me. I don't quite know why. And he didn't say no. He just kind of said, well, okay. He wasn't that interested, though. It was a very reluctant no, a very reluctant no. But he trusted us and he knew us. For you see, he is also from Louisiana, and he has this real Louisiana thing.
Okay.
I think he probably knows everybody in Dallas who's from Louisiana.
Okay, so Louisiana's got to stick together, huh?
Yes.
Yeah,
So that he told us yes, and then we did a lot of stuff. We spent about 6 hours on Zoom with him, just getting his life history of the museum, all this stuff. So we have just lots of tape of Dr. Robinson.
Okay.
But we didn't quite know what form we wanted it to take, so we just got to talking about it and trying to figure out what to do. So if we do a film, then how do we don't know anything about doing a film. And then I remembered that I'm on a board that's in another state, and because of COVID, they sent somebody to record me doing the graduation welcome as a chair of the board. And I said, this company, this guy came out from this company and they do these recordings. I think they make films. Maybe we could ask them. And that's how Shane came in. It was his company. I didn't know that, though. They had just sent someone out 2 years, I think, 2 consecutive years to film me doing that speech.
Wow, that's amazing how those things come about. And I'm guessing that you've never been an executive producer, Helen, or Linda been a producer.
No, this is my first experience. And I will say that I did a project with a group of youth at the museum in 2018-19, youth ambassadors. And so when I would go to the museum, would just have these conversations with Dr. Robinson. And it was all so informative. He knew everything about everything. And so I think that was the time when I thought, we really need to capture all of this history that he's got.
And the other thing, my expression was, Harry has so much in his brain, we need to download his brain. You can just talk to him about anything, the history of the Baptist church, and he just has so much information. And that's how we lose so much. So that was a huge part of this, because he's a fount of information. He really is. And it's accurate. He doesn't forget a thing.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'll tell you what, why don't we bring out Dr. Robinson now, since we're talking about you here? Why don't we bring you into this conversation? I think you're not going to let us see your face today. Is that it?
No.
No.
Helen and Linda, I ran into some more Louisianians every weekend. I run into some, all during the weekend. I take notes. I have notes all over the place with their telephone numbers and email addresses. And it's just something about the camaraderie amongst Louisiana. And the other thing, Linda, that Helen and Linda didn't tell you, their personal relationships here. Linda's brother was my roommate in college. And one of her mentors, who was chairman of the board at Bishop, her cousin, I think, was my mentor. And Helen and I go way back. I knew Helen's sister before I knew Helen. She was a student at Bishop and was in the players group, the Harrison Players, whatever group was.
Players.
And they were like professionals. They were every bit of professionals. And anyway, Pat and I kept in touch with each other. And Helen came to Bishop. And we just latched on to each other. And so whenever I had a program and I wanted it done right, I would call Helen. And Helen came and helped me with an exhibition. Women of Courage. And then I said, Helen, we need to do a local one. Then she put together a local exhibition. And I knew I had a hook by that time. So every 2 years, we had the Texas Black Women's Conference. So the 1986 was coming up, and that was the Texas sesquicentennial. So what we did, we honored 150 women from across the state of Texas and put them in the Hall of Fame. And of course, Helen did all of the work with her group. I just sat back and tried to raise the money to fund the thing. And it was a memorable occasion, and people are still talking about it. But that's how we got started. And I enjoyed working with them. There's a bunch of people have asked me about doing a bio or film or tape. Or like Helen said, I didn't trust them. I just didn't trust them. And I wasn't about to get into something that, I didn't trust people with. But with Helen and Linda, I had complete trust in them and confidence in them. And I knew they were going to do the right thing. And plus, they had certain standards. Some of these other people just throw something together and then once it's done, it's done. So, but I had no reservations about working with the two of them once I agreed to do it. I was reluctant to do it because I have an inbred hostility toward propping individuals up. I just think we ought to deal with institutions and movements. And I was glad that they agreed to focus in on the museum because the museum came out of Bishop College. And when I came to Bishop to finalize my negotiation with them, the president asked me, he saw what I had done in other places. He said, well, I want to know what you're going to do for this community. He said, this community has done much more for Bishop than Bishop done for it. So anyway, I told him I did what I wanted to do, and he was gung-ho behind it. And by the way, I came to Bishop in 1974, but I was offered a job at Bishop in 1966. I still have the contract somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I have that contract. So it was just a matter of, I guess I was supposed to be at Bishop. So I ended up at Bishop, working with the president and with the museum, and here we are today.
I know. How a fabulous story. And, the thing is that we want to honor institutions, but institutions come about because of people working together. So it's very important that that story doesn't get lost, because also it inspires other people that they can do something, that they can be part of a movement, that they can work with other people and bring about something as fabulous as the African American Museum in Dallas. So I want to commend and applaud you for the work with that and the openness to work with other people and bring other people in and to accomplish what's been accomplished there. So, you've got to get your props, whether you like that or not. You have to get the game. It is important. It does inspire other people to do the work. Okay, so thank you for that. And I was wondering about, I know when Helen first approached you, you were kind of reluctant. But, it is important to work with people that you trust and that what their spirit, what their desire, what the work is that they want to do and the excellence that they're going to provide. And in fact, we found your film so excellent that it won the Best Texas Documentary short at our festival. So it's very fine work.
Helen and I have a thing going about the Bishop grads, and I'm going to work on some more about that. But I wish you would see the comments that we've gotten from the kids who, I guess they were students of Helen or something, they knew. But anyway, all kinds of congratulatory comments on Facebook about the film. And one of our students or graduates is promoting the film, encouraging folks to buy it. I don't know where she gets all that information from. But she's been telling me they need to buy it. They've been telling me they need to watch it on wherever it is. They got times to show the film to be shown, and they're just promoting it. And so I've heard from some students. I heard from Michael Williams, Helen. Okay. Reverend Michael Williams and several other students who were there when I was at Bishop.
Oh yeah, I would think there would be many, many people, that would be interested in that.
Well, it's a real treasure. And we just hope that everybody can come to the museum and just have the experience And it has been such a labor of love for Dr. Robinson. You can sense that he has put his heart into this. And over the years, we have seen the progress. I was in another state when it opened in 1993, but I came back for the opening of the museum. And after we relocated back, I mean, just to see the programs and the progress and the support, it's really quite a cultural and historical institution.
You know, Linda probably doesn't remember where she first met, where we first met. It was in North Park Mall at an art show. I didn't know who she was, but she ended up being the sister-in-law of my best friend, Billy Allen. And then later on, I discovered my roommate was our sister.
Was
Her
a
brother.
brother.
That was a long time ago. We were out we were just talking to each other, and so she
Your roommate was my brother.
Yeah.
So Linda, if you could bring our filmmaker in, our director, because he made it.
I'm going to bring Shane in because this is like a family affair here. And Shane, you know, you don't look like you're quite in the family. I mean, you are. You've been adopted into it.
I'm adopted.
Let's just say you weren't born into it, okay?
He's in now. He's in.
But he's in. He's been adopted now. So how did you feel getting involved in this project? I mean, I think Helen mentioned earlier how this happened. She met you through another project you were doing in your company.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think when they approached you with this idea?
Well, just first off, thanks for having us on the show and the exposure for the documentary and the museum. Honored. We were just honored when, Helen reached out, and it was because of the experience she had received with one of our filmmakers, Joey Nicotra, who ended up being the DP on this project. Okay. And she had said, she had trusted Joey. She didn't really know who Shane was. She didn't know who I was. And she took the time to do some meetings with me and Linda as well. And, just through conversations, I think I'm all about storytelling and finding the heart of the message and how can we make it shareable. And Helen came to me and said, we want to preserve history, the history of the museum, Dr. Robinson, everybody that was involved, and we want to make it shareable, right? And so I'm a solutions guy, I'm a strategy guy. And so honored to even just be considered an outlet to help them tell the story, because they already did so much work before they even approached us. They had Zoom recordings, they had documents that we went through and that really helped us understand the scope of work, which was huge that we were getting into, but then also just the amount of history and information that we were able to be a part of. So I would say honored for the trust and to be included in the process of making this documentary.
Okay. Now, how long did it take you? Were you working on this project?
Oh,
I mean, how long did it take to put something like this together?
So Helen and Linda would have to answer because I would say they did even the pre-production research phase, right? Before we even started pre-production.
Linda,
Helen, how long was that?
6 months of that. And then it took you what? After we got you.
It probably was another 6 months. If you think about from our first, consultation meeting together to when we had the final film, production and everything. So I would say if I could guess, I would say about 6 months.
So it took over a year. Linda says about 18 months, but
it was going through several iterations, just the discussion and what will we do with it. And we were Zooming every week for about 6 weeks. And we might have done more than 6 months, Linda. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, because we had somebody transcribe all this too.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a lot. We did a lot of work before, a lot of it, because we didn't know exactly what we were doing.
And then we went to the museum, and through the archives, we went through pictures,
photographs.
Yeah. And Dr. Robinson it was amazing just to see him say, oh, that's you know, such and such and so and so. He knew the names from 1974.
Yeah. To everybody. So I'm thinking, Shane, you're getting all this information is coming into you.
But you
Yeah,
see what
we-
people,
Oh,
you know,
we
what
were
they don't
amazed.
understand. What
We
they
were
don't understand.
amazed at because we gave him so much. And for
Yes.
them, and he had an amazing editor. We got to credit her. What's her name?
oh, Melissa Fleetwood, the entire team. So it takes an entire village. Melissa Fleetwood was the editor. A really fun story was that, you know, pre-production on documentary is, or any production is everything, right? Prep, research, learn, develop. And then
Right.
production is the fun part, but it's so short. You know, it can seem so short. And then post-production, long process again. And
Yes.
Melissa Fleetwood, the editor, when I put her on the project, I said, we've got this amazing story to tell here, you know, gave her the full rundown. She goes to the museum before she goes, okay, let's do this. And I'm excited to do it. She goes to the museum with her family. Didn't tell me she was going to do this. Tours it with her family. She ended up doing research online, and she helped us source some of the additional footage that a lot of my producing team, because I got to mention Keelan Moore as well. He's a producer with Cinema Story. I know he's flying right now, so I don't know if he's going to make it. And then Zena was one of our researchers. We had all of these people working on the project, going through the material, and then also trying to find some of the archival news footage. And Melissa just happened upon the UNT archives and found us the news footage that we were looking for. So yes, big shout out to Melissa, Keelan, and the entire team at Cinema Story. And then of course, Helen and Linda, everything that they provided, they just set us up for success. So
I know that's
Well, you
wonderful.
know,
Dr.
It does
Robinson
make-
was going to say something, Linda.
Yes.
yeah, I knew Helen and Linda would do a good job, but I must confess, when Helen showed me that film, I mean, I just broke down and cried because of the quality of the work and the amount of research they had done. There were some pictures I had forgotten about, but
Wow.
Helen and all of them keep talking about what I know, but it's not that I'm that smart. It's that I was trained in information science and I was a history major. That's why I know that stuff. It isn't that I'm that smart or brilliant or anything. It's just that I was trained that way.
I didn't use the word brilliant, Dr. Robinson.
He knows that history, though.
He's putting labels on himself now.
I like that. But anyway, that's how that came about.
Okay. I know. And it's amazing, this whole thing. And I'm just thinking about all of this material and putting it all together and then getting to this finished project, you know, and I see when you saw it, Dr. Robinson, you just said you teared up on it. Well, Helen and Linda, what did you think? I mean, what was when you saw the final product?
I was just beyond pleased. I was just without words, and that's rare. I was just so impressed that they created that out of all of what we gave them. They're real artists.
Yeah, it was really masterful. And then seeing it again, we screened it at the museum in November, and then I saw it at the Campus Theater in Denton at the Black Film Festival on Saturday. And I had a visceral emotion watching it again. It was so impactful.
Yes.
Yeah, even more so on the big screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That opening, it was just.
I know. And that's it. We were so excited to get back to in person because there's nothing like seeing a film on a big screen and with an audience, you know, and getting that energy and feedback and everything from them. I mean, there's nothing more wonderful than that when it comes to film or watching movies.
But I want to give you kudos, though, Linda, you and your husband and all the people involved in the Denton Black Film Festival, because it's so important. It's such a wonderful avenue for African Americans to display their work, or for people who've done this work. And it's an opportunity that we probably would not have otherwise, maybe not even know about. So thank you.
Well,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. And I think what I see between the two organizations of what you did and what we do is it does take a team.
Yes.
You know, it takes people working together, everyone doing their part to make it happen, because without the team and the volunteer, and we're volunteers for this festival, without this team, we couldn't do the things that we do. So I'm eternally grateful for everyone that works with us, gives us their time and their energy. And I think on this project as well, you know, it's everyone pitching in and doing their part. Because when he mentioned the editor, editing is so important in a film. You know, what we've come to learn in working and talking with filmmakers and the work that they produce, the editing is key in telling the story, because you can have a wonderful, you know, storyline, and you can have all this footage and everything, but if it doesn't come together to really tell the story the way that it needs to be told, you know, you don't get that finished product. You don't get the excellence that you have in this film.
Yeah,
So,
and you know, I have
to your team.
I have to give a shout out to some of the museum supporters, because when I mentioned it, well, Helen was working at the book fair in August, and one of the supporters came in, and just in conversation, I mentioned that we were putting this documentary together. And she said, you have to enter it into the Denton Black Film Festival. So Helen went through all of the process of applying. And so after we were selected, and then we went and saw all the people from New York and New Jersey and California. So it got such exposure, you know, that it might not have gotten if that had not happened. So that was really a plus.
Well, that's great, because we try to cultivate. We're a film festival that's in North Texas, but we try to cultivate, you know, we have films from all over, and people from all over that come. We had filmmakers from Canada and, just like you said, California, all over, that came to the festival this year. We had work from South Africa and, you know, other places as well. So that's, you know, always exciting doing that or putting that on. But to get back to your film, I want to know, Shane, what was the most challenging thing in putting together this project? I mean, what? I know you've got stories.
I was about to say, I'm so glad you asked, because I wanted to touch on this. It goes back to the edit, right? It's curating the story, because there's so much history that should be told and should be preserved and shared in the film. It's culling it down to something that you can present in a 20 or 30 minute, you know, mini documentary. That's the hardest challenge, because, you know, I've published over 2,500 videos, films, projects, and I've interviewed a ton of people in my career, a 12-year career. And Dr. Harry Robinson is one of the most interesting people I've ever interviewed, because he is a wealth of history and knowledge. And Dr. Robinson, I think we probably could have done that interview for, like, you know, a whole week, and we still would have had content. And so probably the hardest part was, you know, you can't include everything, right? So I knew what parts were most important for Helen and Linda and Dr. Robinson. And then how do you cull it down to a storyline that walks you through the history of the museum? But there was, you know, there's so much that we had to leave out that still needs to be told. And so that's the hope, is that you watch the documentary and then you go to the museum, you know, and experience it for yourself and see the rest of it. So yes, editing is definitely probably the hardest part of, you know, we want to tell everything, but we've got to keep it into a consumable 30 minutes.
Okay, I see. Well, it sounds like there might be a part 2 or something. I mean, there's stories that perhaps were not told.
Linda, I wanted to
there's some other stories you'd like to see come out of this.
I just want to add a point on the architecture. That's what I've just always been so impressed about, because even before it was constructed, Harry was telling me about the designs and all of that. Everything in that architecture means something. And when you walk in there, if you don't know that, you know, it's totally lost on you. So that was a really big thing for me, for people to walk in there and know that this was not done haphazardly, that there's meaning behind every single thing. And I'm glad they got that part in there the way that they did.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, Linda, Dr. Robinson can tell you, what year will you celebrate the 50th anniversary?
2024.
2024. So
Yeah, we
maybe
will have
there
been,
will be something added. Go ahead, Dr. Robinson.
we will have been in a building 30 years this year.
Okay.
30 years. But Helen, the thing I'd like to say, the people you and Linda gathered were people whom I would have recommended. I mean, these were people whose heart and soul are in that museum. And they were just as enthusiastic and excited about the history of the museum as they were when they were helping us to put this thing together. I mean, the boys Starsky Wilson, Billy Allen, Helen Giddings, and all that crowd. I mean, it just warmed my heart to see them just so excited about telling the story about the museum.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we only have a few more minutes, so want to know about, or give you each a chance to talk about, what you want people to know about this project, what you want them to perhaps experience about it. Or Dr. Robinson, you might want to talk about the museum a little bit and what's available for people. But just your parting thoughts, I guess, on this project and what the museum means. So you want to start, Dr. Robinson?
Okay. Well, the museum means a lot of things to me. One, I'm hoping that people will look upon that museum as a continuation of what A. Maceo Smith started in 1936 as the Hall of Negro Life. And I'll say it repeatedly, just think of where Dallas would have been had they made that Hall of State a permanent building. That's one thing. Secondly,
Yes.
I don't want folks to ever forget that Bishop College, had it not been for Bishop College, it wouldn't be an African American museum. Just would not have happened. The other thing is, the museum is, our museum and most African American museums are institutions for change. One of our mentors said they're centers for liberation, which meant that if you give people new information, they get new attitudes and behavior change because of some of the information that they have gotten. And Bishop Stokes, remember Stokes, who was the presiding bishop for this area, continued to remind us. He would come by and tell me, Robinson, you got to remember, you got to tell these people that this is an institution of liberation, of freedom. And we always talk about the museum being a museum of education, a museum of art, and a museum of history. Most African American museums are not as single focus as the major museum, because it's not a part of our experience as African Americans or people of African descent to compartmentalize our lives. If you come to the museum and look at an African collection, we don't consider that stuff as art. It's a part of the life and culture of the people. There were utilitarian purposes for the object that you see at the museum. You might have a jazz concert at the museum. And what happened years ago, the African American Museum movement started these education programs in major museums because we didn't have collection. Our museum didn't have collection like the Dallas Museum or some other museum or the Crystal Bridges Museum, where the people have a lot of money and they decided they're going to do this. We were building a bike and riding it at the same time.
Dr. Robinson, could I just interject? At the screening, Dr. Robinson said, I mean, it was just a dream and you just have to believe it and make it a reality. So that stuck with me. And that is what I would convey to this generation and future generations. If you have a dream, you try and develop your dream. And this is a result of his dream. But there are so many others who can build their dream as well.
And I just want to say that, I'm sorry, Linda.
No, that's how I would encourage this younger generation.
I have a sentence. The African American Museum is not only for people of African descent.
Yes.
It's for everybody.
Yes. And on that note,
let me tell you, we keep records of people who come in, and
Dr. Robinson, I think the host is going to wrap up now.
okay, you would think that the largest number of non-African American come in would be Hispanic. Not true. It's Asian.
wow, that is interesting. And that's the thing, because I know people ask us too about the Denton Black Film Festival. Is it just for Black people? But no, it's for everyone. It's about sharing our culture, you know, and it's about building community. And that's what your museum, that's what the Dallas African American Museum does as well. So we could talk for hours, and Dr. Robinson, I'm gonna have to come visit you.
Oh yeah, you should. Bring
Myself, I've been to the museum several times, and I, you know, have loved the experience and the art and everything that I've experienced there. I've really enjoyed. So I will have to make a special point of seeing you though when I come, maybe seeing if you're going to be there and making sure that we have a chance to talk.
Okay, I just want to thank Helen, Linda, and Shane again. I'll always be grateful to them for this experience.
Yes, it's a wonderful thing. And we invite everyone to come to the Dallas, the African American Museum of Dallas. If you haven't been there, you need to come. You're in for a treat. And hopefully this film gives you some of the history, understanding of how it came about and how dreams happen.
Yeah.
So I want to thank all of our guests for joining us tonight. I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. And we are going to now, I'm going to have to say a word again. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and just remind everyone of all the wonderful films that we still have available during our virtual festival, because it'll run through February 5th at midnight. And if you miss seeing this film, I'm sorry, it was a one-trick pony in terms of a screening. So you will just have to wait till it is out. I'm sure you'll be able to buy the film, or it'll be distributed on some other streaming platform. So if you miss the film, you know, hold tight, because I'm sure it will be available to you. And with that, I will say good night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yes, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By pioneers.
Hello, I'm Harold Tapp.
An obsession with being the most accurate and protecting their community.
Please be careful in the Dallas-Fort Worth area now.
Upheld today by the largest and most experienced team in North Texas.
Sharing resources and expertise, pushing boundaries to develop exclusive modeling software.
Filling in gaps that nobody else can. Certified most accurate forecasting DFW in both English y Español.
NBC5 and Telemundo 39.
Denton County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And as the county grows, it becomes more difficult to commute. At Denton County Transportation Authority, we provide clean, modern public transportation. Experience the many services DCTA has to offer, including our 21-mile commuter A train, as well as our Connect bus and UNT campus shuttle services, or our Go Zone on-demand app-based rideshare service available in Denton, Louisville, and Highland Village. We pride ourselves in providing you with the connectivity and transit options to safely get you around town or the region. At DCTA, we are committed to safe, customer-focused, and efficient mobility solutions for Denton County. DCTA, we get you where you need and want to go.